What would you do if one day you accidentally received a pizza from your own restaurant, but instead of a delicious dish, it contained a dark secret? Would you ignore it, or would you embark on a journey to uncover the truth? It was pouring rain. David Collins sat by the window of his office on the top floor, his gaze fixed on the bustling streets below. The streetlights reflected off the glass, creating blurred streaks of light in the heavy downpour. In his hand was a pizza box, ordinary in appearance, yet it evoked an unsettling sense of dread. This pizza came from one of his own restaurants, branch number 12 at Eastwood Plaza. David had received it from a friend, a loyal customer who had called him with a disappointed voice. "David, I know you own this chain, but this pizza, it's unbelievable." David lifted the lid of the box, and the first thing that caught his eye was chaos. The cheese was burnt, the pepperoni shriveled and dry, a large oil stain soaked the cardboard like a bleeding wound. His pizzas were once famous for their crispy crust, gooey, creamy cheese, and fresh ingredients. But this pizza was nothing but a twisted, shameful version. His hand gripped the edge of the box, his knuckles turning white. Without hesitation, he picked up the phone and called Jack, the manager of branch number 12th. "Jack, this is David." "Mr. David? Oh, hello. Is there a problem, sir?" Jack replied, his voice polite but unable to hide a hint of unease. "I just received a pizza from your branch, and I'm staring at this mess. Explain it to me." Jack was silent for a moment, then let out an awkward laugh. Maybe a new employee made a mistake. They've been working inefficiently lately. I keep reminding them, but nothing seems to change." "Really?" David tilted his head, his eyes still fixed on the pizza. "What about the quality of the ingredients? Burnt cheese, the sauce almost gone. Are you sure it's just employee error?" Jack immediately shifted blame, his voice becoming faster and more frantic. Yes, that's right. I've had to find them for too many mistakes. If I don't, they'll get even lazier, you know?" David frowned. "Finding employees? Who gave you permission to do that?" It's a way to keep them responsible, Mr. David. It's really hard to control them without strict measures." David knew Jack was lying. He had never authorized any policy of finding employees in any of his company's regulations. Jack's voice grew more nervous, as if he were struggling to justify himself. David remained silent for a long moment. No further words were needed. He understood. "Fine, Jack. Keep managing the way you think is right." David hung up, set the pizza box down on his desk. But within him, a new determination had ignited. And this time, he wouldn't just sit in his office, waiting for sugar-coated reports from his managers. David stood up, opened his wardrobe, pulled out a simple jacket, and zipped it up to his neck. He looked again at the pizza box on the desk, a piece of evidence of the brutal truth hidden beneath the glamorous exterior of his restaurant chain. If I don't check for myself, I might never know what's really going on. And with that thought, David Collins decided he would go to branch number 12, but not as the owner. 2 days later, a middle-aged man with messy graying hair, a scruffy beard, and thick round glasses walked into pizza branch number 12 at Eastwood Plaza. His old raincoat and worn-out sneakers made him look like a laborer, exhausted after a long day. No one recognized David Collins, the founder of the famous pizza chain, now disguised as a man named Dan, a trainee. Jack, the branch manager, stood at the counter, tapping on his phone with a frustrated expression. He glanced at David for a second, showing no interest. "Who are you?" Jack asked without lifting his head from the screen. Dan, I'm starting my trial shift today." David intentionally spoke in a hoarse, slightly hesitant voice. Jack frowned for a moment, then rummaged through the pile of papers on the counter. "Oh, right. Marcus mentioned you'd be coming. Fine. Take this apron, head to the kitchen, and start with the dishes." David took the greasy, stained apron and stepped through the swinging door into the kitchen. The air was thick and heavy. Heat radiated from the old ovens. Smoke and the smell of burning oil filled the space. The clattering of knives, the sizzle of bubbling oil, and the low arguments between staff filled the room. "Careful with that tray, Kevin," a female voice shouted. "Last time you dropped it, you got fined $15. David turned and saw a young woman worn a blonde, tired-eyed young man. Her name was Maria, the kitchen supervisor. Once a skilled chef, she was now forced to play the role of a supervisor/slave under Jack's absurd rules. "Hey Dan, right," Maria called out when she saw David awkwardly standing by the sink. "Yes, that's me," David forced a smile. "Hurry up. We're short on staff, and Jack never hires more people." David nodded, his hands gradually finding a rhythm with the washing and stacking, but he couldn't stop observing. Another young man, barely 18, was nervously slicing pepperoni, his hands trembling and cutting the slices unevenly. "Elliot, are you trying to waste all the ingredients?" Jack suddenly appeared, his face flushed with anger. "That's a $10 fine for slicing them wrong." Elliot looked down, too afraid to speak. David frowned. He was beginning to understand what was happening. Small mistakes by the staff were all recorded and fined by Jack. But the strangest thing was that none of them protested. No one spoke up. They just silently endured. David recalled his phone call with Jack. "I have to fine them to keep them responsible." But clearly, this wasn't responsibility. It was fear. Throughout the evening, David worked quietly but diligently. He didn't just wash dishes, but also helped Maria with ingredient preparation and assisted Elliot when he struggled with the slicer. David noticed that the slicer was so old that the blade was dull, making it nearly impossible to use without mistakes. "This slicer should have been replaced ages ago," David muttered. Maria sighed. "I've requested repairs at least 3 times, but Jack says there's no budget. There's never enough budget." David glanced out at the counter, where Jack was chatting with a man in a suit, wearing shiny leather shoes. Occasionally they laughed together, and Jack slipped an envelope into the man's pocket. "Who's that?" David whispered. Maria shrugged. "Oh, that's Marcus, the regional manager. He comes to inspect, but he mostly just chats with Jack and then leaves." David felt the puzzle pieces starting to fit together. Reports of stable profits but constant staff turnover, complaints about declining food quality, and now he saw firsthand the oppression, abuse, and cruel treatment of the employees. When the shift ended, Maria approached David, patting his shoulder. "Dan, you did great. Not many people can last a day here." David smiled slightly. "Thanks, but everyone seems so tense." "Tense? That's putting it lightly." Maria let out a bitter laugh. "We try to work hard, but Jack always finds a way to deduct our pay. Everyone's afraid of losing their jobs. And Marcus? He just comes to collect his envelope from Jack. We know, but no one dares to speak out." David clenched his fists. He didn't just see the injustice, he felt it. He needed to know more. He had to understand everything before he took action. "Maria, I'll keep working here for a few more days. I want to learn more." "Are you sure?" She looked surprised. "Most people can't last more than 3 days." David smiled. "I'm a patient man." But deep down, his patience was running out. Over the next 3 days, David worked at the restaurant as an ordinary employee. He witnessed every detail of the chaos Jack had created. Broken equipment, low-quality ingredients, staff being unfairly fined, and a stifling work atmosphere. Maria continued to manage the kitchen, but she was constantly dealing with Jack's unreasonable demands. Elliot became even more withdrawn, trembling whenever he had to use the slicer. Kevin, another employee, was often yelled at by Jack for being too slow, even though he was working with outdated equipment, and every time they made a mistake, they were fined. But what worried David the most was Jack's way of controlling everything. Jack would regularly jot down notes on small pieces of paper with the fines and then stuff them into a drawer behind the counter. There were no receipts, no signed records, nothing to prove that the deducted amounts actually went back to the company. David noticed that the drawer was always full of cash, and every night after closing, Jack would retreat to his private office with Marcus, the regional manager, and the two would exchange something. Today, David decided to take it a step further. When the lunch rush ended and the customers began to dwindle, he discreetly approached the counter when Jack stepped out for a smoke. The drawer was locked, but next to it was Jack's notebook, open with a long list of employee names and amounts written beside them. Elliot, $15, wrongly sliced pepperoni. Kevin, $10, spilled the vegetable tray. Maria, minus $20, used too much cheese. David frowned. It wasn't just about finding them. These amounts were being recorded as part of Jack's personal income. That night, after his shift ended, David decided to talk to Maria. Maria, can I ask you something? These fines Jack imposes, are they actually reported in the system? Maria smirked, her smile devoid of humor. The system? Never. Jack keeps it all in his notebook. And when Marcus visits, they split the money. Everyone knows, but no one dares to speak. What if someone did speak up? David asked, his voice lowering. They'd lose their job, Maria replied, her eyes cold. Or worse, they'd be made to feel so worthless they'd quit on their own. David understood. It wasn't just an unreasonable fining system. It was a network of manipulation and abuse. But he needed evidence, and he knew exactly how to get it. The next morning, David arrived early. He brought an old phone with a voice recording app. Throughout his shift, he hid the phone near the counter, pointing it towards Jack's office. And then, as he expected, Marcus appeared in the late afternoon. They shut the office door, but their voices were still audible. Marcus, how's it going today? Jack, not bad. Fined Elliot another $15 for messing up the vegetable tray. Maria got $20. That girl always thinks she's better. Marcus, good. Don't let them get too comfortable. The more stressed they are, the easier they are to control. David heard the sound of paper rustling, followed by Marcus's chuckle. I'll send your share this weekend. Just keep the kids in line. David felt his blood boil. This wasn't just employee abuse. This was a systematic scheme to skim money off employee wages. But he knew that a recording wasn't enough. He needed something clearer. That evening, he left the restaurant and drove to a quiet cafe. There, he opened his laptop and logged into the internal management system of the pizza chain. As the founder and owner, he had access to all reports. But when he opened the financial reports for branch number 12, he noticed something strange. The recorded revenue was suspiciously low compared to the customer volume he witnessed each day. Report, average revenue, $800 per day. Observed reality, around $1,500 per day. David understood immediately. Marcus and Jack weren't just skimming employee fines. They were also committing revenue fraud. A portion of customer payments went straight into their pockets, while the rest was reported as normal. David smiled coldly. He had it all. A recording of Marcus and Jack's conversation, Jack's secret fine notebook, the manipulated revenue reports on the system, but he wasn't done yet. David wanted one final piece of evidence, a direct confrontation, and he knew exactly how to make it happen. The next day, David arrived at the restaurant with a complete plan. He decided not to act rashly. He needed a few more pieces of direct evidence and a trap to catch Jack and Marcus red-handed. First, he met Maria privately in the storage room, away from any cameras. Maria, I need your help, David whispered, his eyes serious. Maria frowned. Help with what? I know what's going on with Jack and Marcus, but I need clearer evidence. I'm going to set a trap, and I need you to play a part in this plan. Maria hesitated for a moment, but then her gaze grew determined. If this ends Jack's reign, I'm in. Good. First, I want you to request Jack's approval for some premium ingredients for a new pizza. Tell him it's my suggestion and that it will boost sales. He won't refuse if he thinks there's more money to be made. Maria nodded, a spark of hope in her eyes. David waited until Marcus appeared as usual at the end of the day. This time, he stayed close to the office door where Marcus and Jack always talked. He had set his phone to record again, but this time he added a small camera hidden in a tissue box on the counter. Jack suspected nothing because David continued to play his role as a quiet, unnoticed employee. The conversation between Jack and Marcus went as it always did. Marcus, all good today? Jack, same as always. Maria asked for premium ingredients. I agreed because I can cut the shares of the others to make up for it. Marcus, smart move. And the fines for today? Jack, $80 from Maria, $30 from Kevin, $15 from Elliot. A good day. Marcus chuckled. You have to keep them in check. I'll send your share this weekend. David had it all. Clear images and audio. But he still wasn't satisfied. That night, he asked Maria to stay after closing. Together, they went through Jack's handwritten notes, photographing all the evidence. David then explained his plan. Tomorrow, I'm going to provoke Jack. I'll make him expose himself right in front of everyone. Maria, I need you to side with him at first. Don't show any sign of knowing. Maria hesitated. Are you sure? If he loses his temper, that's exactly what I want. When he gets angry, he'll reveal everything. The next morning, David entered the restaurant, this time with a mindset ready for confrontation. He was no longer cautious. He worked normally, but kept an eye on Jack. And when he saw Marcus enter in the late afternoon, he knew it was time. David stepped to the counter, where Maria was preparing dough. Maria, yesterday I saw you using extra premium cheese. Why did you do that? He asked loudly enough for everyone to hear. Maria, as planned, acted nervous. I thought it would make the pizza taste better. I mentioned it to Jack, and he approved. David raised an eyebrow. Really? Jack, did you approve this? Jack, standing next to Marcus, frowned. What? Yes, I approved it. But that's none of your business. None of my business? David sneered. Then what about Maria's fine? I saw she was charged $20 just for using extra cheese. The atmosphere in the kitchen suddenly became tense. Jack's face turned red. Who do you think you are questioning me? This is how I run this restaurant. Running it by stealing employees' wages? David stepped forward, his eyes locked on Jack's. Marcus tried to intervene. Calm down, everyone. No need to cause trouble. Oh, but there is, David interrupted. Because I have all the evidence of what you two are doing. Fining employees unfairly, splitting the fines after hours, and even skimming the restaurant's revenue. Everyone in the kitchen stopped, their eyes fixed on the scene. You have no idea what you're talking about, Jack yelled, his face turning bright red. You're just a nobody here. I can fire you right now. David smiled coldly. Really? Fire me? Go ahead. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his employee badge. But instead of Dan, it read David Collins, owner of Pizza Legend. Jack and Marcus froze. Maria covered her mouth, pretending to be shocked to keep up the act. You've been caught red-handed. I have videos, recordings, and your little notebook of fines. So what now? Shall I call the police? Marcus tried to run, but David was prepared. Outside, 2 security guards from the main office were already blocking the exit. Jack stumbled back, stuttering. You can't do this. I was just following Marcus's orders. Oh, really? David crossed his arms. So Marcus forced you to steal employees' wages? Or was that your own brilliant idea? Jack stammered, completely lost for words. David turned to the staff, his voice calm but firm. I'm sorry for letting this happen to all of you, but I promise, from today, things will change. No one here will be mistreated again. He looked at Maria. You will be the new manager of this restaurant if you accept. Tears welled in Maria's eyes as she nodded. Thank you, Mr. David. I won't let you down. But David knew that words were not enough. He needed to act immediately. We will start today. I want each of you to tell me all the issues you faced here. Speak freely, without fear. David turned back to Jack and Marcus. You two are fired, and trust me, the police will want to hear about this. As security escorted Jack and Marcus out, David felt a weight lift off his shoulders. But this wasn't the end. He still had a lot of work to do to fix the damage Jack and Marcus had caused. And he would start that work tomorrow. As soon as Jack and Marcus were escorted out, David wasted no time. He gathered all the employees in the restaurant, their faces still filled with shock and anxiety. David understood that even though he had ousted the 2 corrupt managers, the staff's sense of distrust and fear still lingered. David took a deep breath, his voice calm but firm. First of all, I apologize. No one deserves to endure such mistreatment. This was my fault for allowing people like Jack and Marcus to have the power to harm you. Silence filled the room. David continued, but that changes now. Not just here, but across every Pizza Legend restaurant. And I will personally ensure it. A few skeptical eyes remained, but Maria stood beside David, offering a reassuring smile. Starting now, your wages will be paid in full. There will be no more unfair deductions for any reason. I will make the policies clear, and I will ensure that each of you is treated with respect and fairness." David turned to Maria. "Maria will be the new manager of this restaurant. I have seen her work hard, care for everyone, and always maintain her integrity. I trust her." Maria, with tears brimming in her eyes, nodded. "Thank you, Mr. David. I won't let you down." But David knew that words alone were not enough. He needed to act immediately. "Starting today, I want all of you to tell me every problem you've faced here. Speak openly, without fear." Mason, a tall young man with burn marks on his arms, spoke first. "The kitchen is always short of tools. The knives are dull, the ovens have faulty temperatures, and we're always understaffed during rush hours." Claire, the energetic girl at the cashier, added, "The receipt printer constantly breaks down. Online orders come in all mixed up, and there's no one to help sort them." David carefully noted every point. "Good. I will handle this immediately. Keep going. Don't hold back." After the meeting, David immediately contacted the main office. "Rachel, I need you to send a technical team here immediately. Replace all the knives, fix the ovens, and check the receipt system." "Understood, sir. But what happened?" Rachel asked, her voice filled with concern. "It's a long story, but in short, we let some terrible people run this place, and I won't let it happen again." David hung up and returned to the kitchen, where Maria and her team were still working. Though they were a bit confused, the atmosphere was noticeably lighter. Soon after, the technical team arrived and began repairs. New knives, ovens recalibrated, and the receipt system fixed. David also arranged for 2 additional staff members to help during peak hours. "Maria, I want you to choose the new hires, but find people who care about their work, not just anyone who can do the job." Maria smiled. "I will look for people like Mason and Claire, hardworking, honest, and unafraid to speak the truth." David nodded, satisfied. By lunchtime, David stepped into the kitchen, donned an apron, and joined the team in preparing pizzas. He didn't just give orders. He kneaded dough alongside Mason, learned from Claire how to manage online orders efficiently, and had Maria teach him the secret recipe for the restaurant's signature sauce, which he previously only knew from the written formula. "You're really not like other bosses," Mason commented, sweat beading on his forehead, but a wide smile on his face. "That's because I don't want to be just a boss," David replied. "I want to be someone you can trust." When the rush hour hit, David watched as Maria handled everything efficiently. She assigned tasks properly, stayed calm even when the restaurant was packed, and for the first time in a long while, customers left with smiles and words of appreciation. "This is amazing," Claire whispered to Mason. "No more stress, no more fear of unfair fines." Mason nodded, his grateful eyes fixed on David, who was helping a customer choose extra toppings. When the restaurant finally closed, David gathered everyone once more. "Thank you all for today. This is just the beginning. We won't just do better. We will become the best restaurant in the pizza legend chain. And I want all of you to always tell me if there are any issues. Don't be afraid. I'm here to protect you, not exploit you." Everyone clapped, and David felt something he hadn't felt in a long time: pride. Back in his office, David opened his laptop and typed an email to all the managers across the pizza legend chain. "Starting today, we will no longer impose any form of wage deduction on employees. Employee rights and respect are our top priority. I will personally inspect each restaurant in the chain without prior notice. If I discover any abusive behavior, the person responsible will be terminated immediately. We are a family, and I will not allow anyone in this family to be mistreated again." David hit send and leaned back in his chair with a slight smile of relief. But he knew this was just the beginning. There were still many other restaurants, many other managers he didn't know well, and he wouldn't stop until every employee at Pizza Legend worked in a fair and respectful environment. 1 week later, at the Pizza Legend headquarters, David sat in the large conference room, facing multiple screens displaying live surveillance from over 30 restaurants in the Pizza Legend chain. He had decided to implement a bold plan: inspect the entire restaurant system within a month. "Rachel, is everything ready?" David asked, his eyes still focused on the screens. Rachel, his loyal assistant, nodded. "We have deployed undercover inspection teams to each branch. Some are disguised as customers, while others are applying for jobs to record everything." David sighed with relief. "Good. If anything is like what we saw at Jack and Marcus's branch, I want to know immediately. At the Central Avenue branch, a young man pretending to be a new employee stepped into the kitchen with an eager smile. But within hours, he witnessed the manager yelling at staff for minor mistakes. More troubling was that kitchen staff were forced to pay out of pocket for any burnt pizzas or spilled toppings. Ridiculous. This is how they train people, the young inspector thought, noting everything down. At the Westfield Plaza branch, a woman posing as a customer requested to speak with the manager after receiving a cold pizza. Instead of an apology, the manager retorted with a sharp tone, "If you don't want it, don't order it." The customer walked out, not with disappointment, but with evidence. Back in David's office, Rachel entered, carrying a thick folder. "Sir, here are the initial reports. Not just a few branches, but up to 12 have signs of employee abuse and poor customer service." David felt a tightness in his chest. "I trusted my management team too much." "This isn't your fault," Rachel reassured him, "but we can fix it." David stood, his gaze resolute. "Yes, and we will fix it now." The Great Purge begins. David launched an emergency video call with all the managers in the chain. Their faces appeared on the screen, ranging from surprised to anxious. "Hello everyone, I'm David, and in case you haven't heard, I have conducted a secret inspection of our restaurants." David paused, watching the reactions. A few faces turned pale. "I have seen what some of you have done. Those who abuse employees, disrespect customers, and profit from others' hard work. Prepare to leave Pizza Legend." Hadier turned to Rachel and nodded. Immediately, she sent out termination letters to the managers found guilty of misconduct. "But for the rest of you, those who are honest, hardworking, and always strive for your customers, I will be here to support you." The rebirth of Pizza Legend. 1 month later, David had completely transformed the way Pizza Legend operated. New policies were established. Employee wages could no longer be deducted for any reason. Instead, mistakes would be corrected through training and guidance, a secure feedback system. Every employee could report any problem directly without fear of retaliation. Manager retraining. All new managers were required to complete mandatory training in employee management and customer service. Enhanced wages and bonuses. Long-serving employees with good performance would receive additional bonuses instead of just the base salary. Maria became the regional manager, overseeing the restaurants and ensuring no one was mistreated. Claire and Mason were appointed as trainers for new employees, sharing their stories as lessons in perseverance and unity. The special reopening. The restaurant glowed with warm lights, and a long line of customers waited outside. It was the grand reopening of Pizza Legend after the reforms. David stepped inside, not in a business suit, but in an apron, joining the staff in the kitchen. He kneaded dough, added cheese, and chatted with customers. Maria laughed as she saw David personally handing a pizza to a little boy. "You really have changed everything, David." David turned to her with a smile. "No, Maria. I just put things back where they belong. It's all of you who made the change." Claire and Mason approached, each holding a special pizza with perfectly melted cheese and vibrant toppings. "Pizza Legend isn't just a place that sells pizza. It's a family," Mason declared, his eyes bright. "And no one in this family will ever be disrespected again," Claire added. David nodded, his eyes slightly misty. "Exactly. That's the Pizza Legend I always wanted." Pizza Legend didn't just survive, it was reborn. With new leadership, fairness, and passion, the restaurant chain not only served pizza, but also fostered respect. David was no longer just a distant owner. He was a leader, a friend, and a protector. And as he looked at the Pizza Legend logo, a slice of pizza with wings, he knew it symbolized more than just a dish. It represented the freedom of those who dared to stand up for each other. In business, profit is important, but honesty and respect are even more crucial. A pizza can be just food, but inside it, there can be a story of ethics and responsibility. Will you choose to stand on the sidelines, or will you become the one who changes everything?